Hey everyone, welcome back to the Athlete Effect podcast. I am Bonnie Bernstein, and boy, do we have somebody for you today who you will probably have a whole different take on by the time you're done listening to this interview. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had imposter syndrome? You've had this great opportunity in front of you and you're wondering, am I good enough or am I qualified to do this? Did you play sports? Or maybe you're nearing the end of your career and the thought of retiring is giving you identity crisis vibes because competition is or may soon no longer be a part of your daily life. Are you a parent who has snuck out of work for a few hours to attend a game or an event for your kid, and you've hidden that from your colleagues or your bosses because you didn't want anybody to judge you? Well, if that sounds familiar, guess what? You have a whole lot in common with one of the most powerful women in sports, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. You're going to hear stories from Cathy you have never heard before. The identity crisis she experienced after playing two sports at Lehigh and then starting out at the bottom of the totem pole at Deloitte, and how she harnessed what she learned through basketball and lacrosse to work through that to become the Big Four accounting firm's first female U.S. CEO. You're going to hear a jarring story, what Cathy calls a slap in the face, that helped her realize that as a leader, she wanted to be more transparent about taking time away from work to coach and support her two kids in sports. This is, it is not the type of interview you're used to hearing with the commissioner. We're not going to be breaking down the WNBA's latest collective bargaining agreement. We're not talking about the business of the W. You are going to hear Cathy Engelbert raw and real. Stories about how being one of 8 kids and the daughter of an NBA player has shaped her. The lessons she learned from Hall of Fame coach Muffet McGraw early in Muffet's coaching career. And whether or not, even today, Cathy still does her own taxes. Thank you so much for being with us today. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, download, rate our podcast. We're so appreciative you're here. Lots to get to, so let's lace them up with WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. When I look at your list of awards, so we've got Forbes' Most Powerful Women, Fast Company's Most Productive People, Glassdoor's highest ranking CEOs, and that's voted on by employees, and Working Mother Magazine's 50 Most Powerful Moms, which also includes on that list Beyonce, Adele, Melinda Gates, Shonda Rhimes, shout out Scandal, Reese Witherspoon. It takes something to be able to live on the career path that you live on and raise 2 kids. You don't like to call it work-life balance. What do you call it? Work-life integration?
Integration, because balance would assume you have a perfect 50-50 balance between work and life, and that's never attainable, especially at different times. I always said, when my kids were like newborns and toddlers, they needed me more physically there, and they would cling to my leg when I left, and then they became teenagers and they didn't even look at me when I came home. It's like the exact opposite. And then as they went to college, they needed me a little more, and so many women struggle with, especially in the early years. And I said, look, it gets easier, there's no doubt. I always say the days and nights are long when they're young, but the years go by quick. But it's not linear. And once you say it's not linear, you're gonna feel like you're failing because you're trying to balance it perfectly. So mine was work-life integration. Like during the busiest time for accountants, we would work on Saturdays and I'd bring my kids in. Now, the staff would all play football with them in the hallway, and I'd get a lot of work done, but they weren't getting a lot of work done. But it was fun, and it made me human, too, because I was a partner then. It made me human to them, and they saw a role model that could integrate it into their life.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I know typically when you're getting interviewed, you're being asked about basketball players. And now I'm going to ask you about you as the basketball player. So let's just say you're in the Patriot League now, but back in the day, you were the East Coast Conference at Lehigh. Very
impressive, yes.
And it's your senior year, and point guard Cathy Engelbert is playing a phenomenal game. If you are the color analyst, how are you describing Cathy Engelbert as a player?
Oh boy, because I was a point guard, I was dishing out assists, so I think it was like running the offense. And I actually have the video of our East Coast Conference Championship where I'm actually kind of annoying because I'm telling everyone where to go on the court. I'm literally waving the players because they forget to play. So yeah, running the offense.
Isn't that part of the personality? Almost every point guard I've ever come across in my life is somebody who's like, do this, do that, yet still they have a difficult time delegating.
Yes. I'm sure I've been known for that too.
Growing up in Collingswood, New Jersey, which I always relate anything in South Jersey to Cherry Hill. So this is what, like five miles
the big
away
town
from
near us.
You're one of 8 kids?
Yes, 5 brothers.
5 brothers, 2 sisters, and a dad who played for the legendary Jack Ramsey at St. Joe's and got drafted by the Pistons. So did you choose basketball or did basketball choose you?
I think the backyard chose me against the 3 older brothers. I was their 4th in basketball, soccer, wiffle ball, street hockey, every sport you can imagine. So I think the backyard made me a basketball player because we had this little rickety wooden hoop attached to our detached garage. Does anyone have detached garages anymore? But yeah, it was a fun upbringing. My dad, we had a curfew. We couldn't bounce the ball past 9 o'clock, but we would be out there for hours and hours playing.
Did you ever beat your brothers?
No, they were good. They were also good basketball players. We had good genes from my dad, for sure.
Where did lacrosse come into play?
Lacrosse came into play because I went to Collingswood High School and they were a powerhouse in lacrosse. And I didn't go to that high school till 9th grade. A lot of people were there since middle school and junior high. And in 9th grade, someone said lacrosse is actually a lot more like basketball than you think. So I picked up the lacrosse stick. It was wooden back then. And just loved the game.
The crazy thing is, we're only a few years apart, and I grew up in Central Jersey. I did not see a lacrosse stick until I went on my recruit trip in Maryland. I had no idea, like, the lacrosse guys were running around with the long sticks and the little nets, and I'm like, what the heck is that?
Right.
It didn't, maybe I'm not remembering.
No, Princeton was about as far north as it went when I played, because Princeton and Princeton Day School were the powerhouses, and then we in Morristown, New Jersey, Morristown High School were the powerhouses, and didn't go far north. Now all the northern teams are really good.
Everybody has a team now.
Yes.
It's insane. Did you know that you wanted to play college sports?
Yes. Absolutely, because it's all I ever knew growing up, especially 3 sports in high school. I also played tennis in the fall.
Of course you did.
I was actually a pretty good tennis player. And so I knew, but what I didn't know was whether I was good enough. And back then it wasn't like, I must play Division I. It was just like, am I good enough to play in college?
Yeah, this is only, few more years after Title IX.
Yes, I am definitely a Title IX kid. I didn't have soccer growing up for girls.
Were there girls on your team who got scholarships?
Maybe to the big schools. Like we had a few go to Rutgers and Temple and Penn State. Partial probably back then.
Were you getting recruited for lacrosse and basketball, or one
Just
or the
lacrosse,
other?
Believe it or not. Yeah, so it's ironic that I ended up picking Lehigh University primarily because I could play 2 sports. A lot of other places I couldn't, or they didn't have a D1 lacrosse team. So lacrosse wasn't as proliferated as it is today in the Northeast or anywhere. It was very big in Maryland, and it wasn't west of the Mississippi at all. Now, obviously, the sport has grown.
I know 5 of your siblings went to Nova, so
Yes.
You're very much a Nova school. How did that conversation go down when you're sitting there with mom and dad and you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to buck the trend here?
Right, but we had a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman at Nova when I was looking at colleges, and Nova was the school I wanted to go to, but they were one of the ones that did not have a Division I lacrosse team. And probably their basketball team was too good for me, but lacrosse, they had a club team, that was it.
How did you juggle both?
Oh, I see so many analogies to my life today of juggling, and it was time management. It literally was time management. It was actually good because Lehigh is a rigorous academic institution, and I actually started in computer science and switched to the business school in accounting my second semester sophomore year, and it was hard to juggle it because a lot of the other players on both teams, they weren't necessarily, actually in lacrosse, a lot of them were engineers. They were really smart. And in basketball, I was like the one in the accounting curriculum, which was, there was like literally a weed out process to weed people out of accounting their first year or two, and I survived it.
I hadn't
but
even
it was
thought
all
of
time
that.
management.
Yeah, because Lehigh really is known for its engineering program. That's what
that was
they
our
used
nickname.
to be called, right?
When I played there, we were the Lady Engineers.
You're not anymore.
The Mountain Hawks.
Now you're the Mountain Hawks. So you walk on and you decide you're going to play 2 sports. Did you focus on one more than the other in terms of continuing to improve your skills? Because a lot of times 2-sport athletes, while I feel like they're kind of rare these days, You've got one sport that's your primary focus. Was it lacrosse or basketball for you?
I'd say growing up it was basketball, but in college it was lacrosse. I was recruited for lacrosse. Literally, my walk-on story is I saw a poster. There was no phones back then, cell phones. There was no devices. And I think someone posted on a tree on campus, basketball tryouts today at Taylor Gym at 3 o'clock or whatever it was posted. And I showed up. So I had to work. I definitely emphasized basketball. I had to work a lot harder. Remember, there's only 5 players on the court in basketball. There's a lot more in lacrosse. So to get a spot on that team, and I wanted to start, and I wanted to be the point guard, even though I was a 2 shooting guard in high school, but I knew I was a kind of a taller point guard in college at that time. Now I'd be short based on how tall the women are today. But yeah, I just was like, I was a pretty good basketball player in high school. I'm going out for the team. It's crazy today to do that.
No.
But back then, that was what we did.
I want you to give me 2 stories. 2 stories that you think have defined your career as an athlete. The story of victory or something that was positive, and then the story that may have been heartbreaking for you or disappointing or failure, but has proven to be a really valuable teaching moment.
Yeah, I'd say we'll start with the victory because I'm an optimist. The victory was definitely my senior year in high school, winning the state championship, and I scored the sudden death overtime goal, assisted by my sister. She was running down the field, passed it to me, and I scored that, and we won the game because it was sudden death. So that was probably a victory because we were the underdog in that game, and we won. And then I'd say kind of defeatist was my senior year at Lehigh. We're 24-4. We're good. We win the East Coast Conference. But back then, the funding for women's sports wasn't there. I think the NCAA only took 16 teams to the tournament, and we didn't get a bid. And we thought, here we are seniors, we had a very strong senior class, that we're playing another game at least in the NCAA tournament, and we don't get a bid. And we're done. Our careers are over. And I'll tell you, what a lesson to be learned about kind of rejection, but also like the resilience of like picking ourselves up, going to class the next day. We were all devastated. Everybody was crying. We're like, well, how could we not get a bid? We were 24-4, won our conference. Like today, that's an automatic bid.
For sure.
Back then it wasn't. They didn't take that many teams. So I think the analogy to my life today, you know, the undervaluation of women's sports that existed when I came in the league and we're making huge progress on, it was even worse back then.
And your coach was none other
than
Muffet McGraw.
Muffet McGraw. So,
that was her only job other than Notre Dame as a head coach, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think she coached in high school in the Philly area, and then her first head coaching job was Lehigh. My 4 years, so she didn't recruit anyone on my team. I wasn't recruited, but she didn't even recruit the recruits. The prior coach did. She came in August, I think it was, and you know the season started in October. And she went on to turn the Lehigh program around. I mean, I don't know, maybe there were 4 and something before my freshman year. We were 24-4 by senior year. She went then 1 more year at Lehigh and then went to Notre Dame, 2 national championships, Hall of Fame career.
Was there anything that you remember about the way she coached, the way she motivated, the way she interacted with the players that, hindsight's always 20/20 obviously, but may have given you an inkling like this lady's got a pretty decent career ahead of her?
Yeah, definitely intensity. Competitiveness. She and I both grew up in the Philadelphia area, and like we're both so competitive. So we were a good fit. Obviously, back then I thought she was a lot older than me, and now she's actually not that older than me. You know, just a few years. So, but her intensity, I think her commitment to practice. You got to play hard in practice.
And were you a practice player? Because some people are practice players.
I was.
You were.
But some of our best players were not, but I was, and she had this philosophy that, you know, if you're on the foul line, you're exhausted in the 4th quarter, and you got to build that muscle memory. And that's for sport, and there's some analogies to business on that too. Build, practice, build that muscle memory, be prepared. But the one thing about Muffet, anyone who she's ever coached will say, she hates to lose. So once you got to know her, you didn't want to lose, because those 4 losses my senior year, they're the ones I remember. I really don't remember many of the wins. I remember the 4 losses.
Coming from such a competitive household where your dad played basketball, was that different or new from your experience growing up, or was that similar?
Similar. I mean, I just grinded it out with the brothers, the competitiveness. My mom, who did not get to go to college and was not very athletic, but she was one of the most competitive. She is one of the most competitive people I know. So it's kind of fun. You know, my dad, obviously being an elite athlete, he also played baseball at St. Joe's. Being an elite athlete was kind of fun to learn about, but my mom's pretty competitive too. So it was just a natural part of, especially growing up with 3 older brothers. And my sister and I are only 13 months apart, and we just would battle with the older brothers all the time.
This series is all about shining a light on women across all different industries who are harnessing their sports superpowers to kick butt in their careers. If you were going to pick one skill set that has been critical to you building your time at Deloitte to the point where you became the first female US CEO and became the first commissioner of the WNBA, what would that one skill set be?
It's actually a hockey quote, but it applies to basketball and life. Shoot when you're open. So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and kind of fear of failure is paralyzing. And so I think the thing I learned through sports that carried me into business was kind of like, take your shot. Don't be paralyzed by risk, balance risk. And for me, that taking your shot was about raising my hand to do different things in my career to build capabilities. So I didn't become the CEO of Deloitte because I was a woman. I became it because I raised my hand every 5-6 years or so and said, I want to do something different.
Yeah.
You know, I went to our national office 6 years in and did research for 2 years. I worked in banking, I worked in pharmaceuticals, I worked in consulting for a bit. I was an auditor and a CPA primarily, but when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, I wanted to learn the science. So that curiosity too was also key, I think. But shoot when you're open, I think is, and prepare. People who work with me know if you're going to give me a PowerPoint deck, I'm going to read it and I'm going to be prepared. So you better know that material better than I do, because I'm going to ask questions. So, I mean, that I had to hone over many years of experience, but prepare. And I think that's such a great analogy to sport today and building that muscle memory. And again, when you're on the line with 2 seconds left, down 1 point, you have 2 foul shots, muscle memory is going to come into play because you're exhausted and it's pressure, but muscle memory.
Okay, we need to talk about the accounting thing. So I'm the daughter of an accountant who taught us all about saving when we were little. And when I graduated from college, literally the day I graduated from college, I think he had me open my first retirement account. I missed that numbers gene on the assembly line. Without hands, fingers, toes, I'm not sure I could do single digit addition. And I find accounting to be, while extraordinarily necessary, laborious. Why? I don't even know what the question is. All I know is that
33 years.
33 years.
But it's so, it's the language of business.
Is it though?
And if you understand a P&L, if you understand an income statement, if you understand a cash flow statement and what free cash flow and EBITDA is, you can do anything. I mean, you can run a sports league. Like, I would never be able to run a sports league and grow this league the way we had I not had this business upbringing, this accounting upbringing, where I saw all different kinds of financial models and economic models and growth models and non-growth models. No way. I mean, it's just, and it's also accounting, a lot of people don't realize this, it's actually a lot of logic. It's not as much math as everyone thinks. It's logic.
Well, then I'm completely illogical too, on top of not being able to do math. But we were talking before camera started rolling. You still do your family's tax returns?
I still do tax returns. Yep, I do.
Like physically fill out the forms.
Yeah. I'm using, of course, great software now that basically does it for you. And soon AI will take all that over. But and the more complex the return, multi-state and things like that, R&D credit, foreign tax credit, I like to keep up with the tax law, just so I can, I'm still in a lot of CEO networks and I can still talk about tax policy.
So if you ever decide to step away from the league, you can just go back to being a CPA.
That's exactly right. That might be my third act.
I feel like I talk to so many young women, especially the ones who are playing in college, who are transitioning. They're hanging up whatever competitive gear that they've been wearing their entire lives, and it's time to go to work. The identity crisis is real because for so long, women will look in the mirror and identify themselves as an athlete, and then it's gone. Did you go through that?
I definitely did. Especially having played 2 sports. I mean, the transition into the work world and what people call the real world. And I'm like, what's the real world? I'll never forget it. People were like, you're going to be in the real world now.
What was hard about it for you?
I think it was just, a huge learning curve. It's like you start at the bottom. You're a senior. You go as a freshman and you're at the bottom, but then you build up and you're at the top. And then I go to Deloitte and I'm at the bottom again. And then after 5 years, you get promoted to the next level called manager and you're at the bottom of that rank. And then 5 years later, you're at the bottom. So the adjustment every few years in the corporate world is, presuming you get promoted, and I happen to be blessed to be in a great apprenticeship model where you got promoted every few years. It's kind of interesting because here you think you're the big person on campus and then you're back down. And you got to really, that's why raising your hand, building your capability and asking to do different things is so important, because otherwise you're just blending in with everybody else. And everyone's like, Cathy, how did you get here? Because I didn't want to blend in. Yeah. I wanted a niche.
Were there a lot of women?
Not when I joined. Yeah. No, I mean, it was a very male-dominated world in the kind of public accounting profession. They made an enormous amount of progress. I think now college graduates, more women are accounting majors than men even. So they're making enormous progress. But there was very few, and my mom used to say to me, you're going to do fine in the corporate world because it's very male dominated and you're growing up next to 5 of them, which were my brothers. So
that's right. Interesting. Do you think that the family dynamics were different? Your rise through the ranks might have been different?
I absolutely am a huge believer that my brothers made me the competitor that I was. I was also really shy when I got to Lehigh as a freshman.
Were you?
Probably one of the shyest people on campus, I would say. And sports brought me out of my shell. Lehigh's got a great social life, great academics. So I think that trifecta for me was really important. And then because I competed, I mean, my sister and I competed for food, Pop-Tarts. Like my brothers would we'd hide it in our room. Think about that, because sister and I shared a room for 20 plus years. So yeah, it was competitive. And I think my dynamic definitely would have been different. And I think my father died when I was just a year out of Lehigh. And I also think my dynamic might have been different had he not passed away, because he and I did a lot together. We used to play tennis on Sundays together and things like that. And I think I would have been less apt to raise my hand to do different things because I moved to Connecticut for that accounting research position. And I'm not sure I would have done that had he still been living.
How do you think you overcame the identity crisis? So, you talk about coming out of your shell and that you're just naturally motivated. But if you're talking to a group of girls who are getting ready to graduate, what would you tell them? What would you instill in them that they may not know?
Find a passion for what you're going to do. I mean, believe it or not, I know what you said about accountants, but I joined and I had such a passion for...
You really liked it, didn't you?
I had such a passion for learning about how companies worked. I was so curious. So that passion is the reason I stayed 33 years. But certainly got me to stay the first few years because a lot of accountants drop out after they get their CPA after 2 years. So it really, the advice I would give was find your passion. Yeah. And then as women, we tend to have imposter syndrome. So once you're past the identity crisis, then you get into the imposter syndrome crisis, I think. There were times where I said, I can't raise my hand for that job because I don't have this criteria or that characteristic or I hadn't done that. And that's something I really, really tell women, sky's the limit. And athletes are better. I'd hire an athlete any day because I know they're not going to have that imposter syndrome because they come out so confident now, which was not my generation.
Think so?
More confident than they did my generation.
I hear a lot from women our age that they had no idea in real time what the long-term benefits of sports were. Did you know? I didn't know.
I didn't know, probably didn't know till I got a call on literally my 50th birthday to say, you're going to be the next CEO of Deloitte. That's when I said, me? This is the first thing I said, me? I knew I was one of 4 candidates, but no woman had ever interviewed to become the CEO, let alone got it. So I was the first one to interview of any of the big 4 accounting and consulting firms. So I think that was the moment where I said, all my sports upbringing paid off. Resilience, leadership, knowing how to win, knowing how to lose, knowing how to be a team player. I mean, I literally think I became the CEO, one, because I was able to balance raising kids and the work and coaching, and two, I think people understood that I had built this confidence coming off of playing two sports.
When did you get to the point where you gave yourself grace? On the days when you weren't able to function at 100% as an employee, as a CEO, and you didn't feel like you were working at 100% capacity as a mom. How long did it take before you finally said, I can only do what I can do?
Yeah, I guess I read something about, like, it was, can you have it all? And I'm like, have? Who's defining the it have? And I actually sat down and said, can I do it all? And then I got to define it versus have it, do it. I'm the one that's doing it, and I'm not having it because that's defined by society.
How do you define it?
So I did define it as I wanted to coach my daughter's basketball team, and I wanted to go to my daughter's lacrosse games, and my son played baseball. And I'll never forget the day I was announced as the commissioner of the WNBA. My son had a high school basketball game, and he was a senior, and he happened to be the captain that day, and he was out with the umpires, with the coach, and I went to the game. And I'd been on TV and being announced, and the coach goes, oh, to the umps, see that woman over there? That's his mom. She's the new commissioner of the WNBA. And the umps were like, that's so cool. And then that's the day I went up in my son's book of being cool, because I don't think I was cool before that.
Tell me about the logistics of that day. So did you make sure the press conference was scheduled early enough to give you enough time?
ESPN, I'll never forget. I forget what time I was scheduled to be on ESPN, but I also was still the CEO of Deloitte. I was finishing my term there. So I had an audit committee meeting at one of my clients. I had this spot on ESPN to be announced as the first commissioner, and my son has a baseball game at 3:30, 4 o'clock in New Jersey, and I'm in New York. And I'll never forget it. The Jets announced some big signing or something like that, so my spot was delayed by like a half hour. And I'm stressing, I gotta get to this audit committee meeting, I have to get to, and then I gotta tell this audit committee, oh, by the way, I'm retiring from Deloitte and I'm becoming the commissioner, because it was just on national television.
They didn't know?
Yeah, we didn't tell anyone until we got closer. And the NBA and WNBA didn't want it to leak that I was the person, because they were without a leader for about 6 months before I came in, because the prior leader had left. But anyway, so it was a fun day, but I'll never forget my son saying, Mom, that was pretty cool. I was out with the umpires and they were impressed that you're the commissioner of the WNBA.
So if you were coaching Julia's basketball team and they were playing the state championship, and as you're driving to the game, you get a call from a client or an owner, although you coached her before you went to the league.
The commish, yeah.
How do you make that choice?
Keep driving. And, I'd be on the phone up until I walked into the gym or I walked onto the lacrosse field, and I'd literally, say, I got to go now. I have a hard stop.
Yeah.
And in the early days, I wouldn't say why. And then I learned to tell people why, because a woman left Deloitte once and said, I didn't even know her. And she left, and this was a huge slap in the face. She said, someone was interviewing her, why are you leaving? They do exit interviews. And she said, because my role model is Cathy Engelbert. Never worked with her, never met her. And I see her logged on at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I know she has 2 kids, and I don't want that. This woman wasn't even married yet, let alone having kids. But that's when I realized, you know what? I need to tell people. I had left that day at 5 o'clock to go coach a basketball game. So yes, did I log on at 10 o'clock at night after the kids were in bed? Yes, we're all guilty of that. But what I realized is everybody's watching you, especially when you're a role model leader. People are watching you, especially young women who want to envision themselves as you. So that was a big slap in the face. So I started telling people I'm going to my daughter's game or I'm going to my son's game. So
it's probably empowering too, because if that message comes down from the top, because if you're not explaining it, or if you're not going, then it says...
Or you're hiding it.
Yeah.
Or you're not going, even worse.
Yeah.
And so when I coached my daughter's middle school basketball travel is January through March. That was the busy season. And so what did I do? I got smart that year, the first year I did it, and I went to my client, 2 men, and I said, I just want to let you know there are some days when I'm going to leave to coach. It's important to me to do this for my daughter and her friends. And I just want to let you know, I'll be back online later, all that. And you know what they said to me like 6 months later? Thank you for being honest with us. These are men. Because I wanted to go to my daughter's dance recital, or I wanted to coach my son's Little League team, and I didn't think I could do it, and you've empowered us to do it.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget that. I was like, oh, having an impact on young fathers too. That's cool.
Has Cathy Engelbert ever had a meltdown?
I am sure I have, but I have been blessed with, I think, a lot of great teams around me so that I've never really melted down. I also think a lot about being grace under pressure.
That's got to come from being a point guard too.
Not overreacting, knowing pendulum swing left and right in the middle. And do I worry about stuff? Sure. I think the older you get to, the wiser you get about not letting everything, get to you. But I'm sure there are days when I broke. But I, for the most part, because I really had to focus on family first, our people first, now player first, I call it at the W, but it's like that always guided me. Like it gave me that adrenaline to like, I'm doing this for a higher purpose.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when you look at the data, the number 2 reason why girls drop out of sports is lack of parental involvement. They may want to play, but if a parent's not driving them to practice or to games, there may not be the opportunity. Did you encourage Julia to play? And did you make that commitment to finding a way to make it work to support her?
Yeah, I definitely encouraged her to play. I think if she had it her way, she wouldn't have played any sports, but she ended up being a pretty elite both field hockey and lacrosse player. She dropped out of basketball after freshman year in high school, which is pretty good. I got her all the way to there because she was a good shooter. She just, she didn't love the game like I did. Yeah, very supportive, but I had to rely on a lot of moms to drive her places. Same with my son. I used to get the moms like Tory Burch sandals every year because I'd be like, they like saved my life because I could get to games, but I couldn't go to every practice, and I traveled a ton. So it was a balance. But I'll never forget, my daughter wrote a paper once it was probably 5th, 6th grade. My amazing mom, she dropped me off at school. She went to Georgia and she picked me up from field hockey practice, which is true. I flew to Georgia for a 2-hour meeting, flew back and picked her up at field hockey practice.
Oh, wow.
So she's like, I still don't know to this day, Mom, how you did it, but we do the things that are important. I didn't realize that made such an impression on her. She still talks about that story today.
What is your message to young girls who may be thinking about dropping out of sports?
Stay in sports. You don't realize it now, but years from now, you're going to look back and thank me because you're going to realize the skills you built, whether it was resilience, whether it was learning how to lose, whether it's being a gracious winner, sportsmanship. There's so many lessons now that I think in my very formative years, which these teenagers are, really molded me into someone who was able to be pretty multidimensional in their career over time. So I wouldn't use all those sophisticated thoughts on a 12, 13-year-old, but we do have a bit of a crisis of young girls dropping out of sport at alarming rates versus their male counterparts in those, tween and teen years. And I think there's a stat out there, Bonnie, you probably know it better than me, 94% of female C-suite executives at least played organized youth sports through high school.
Yep.
And then over 50% of that
That's correct.
Played through college.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating stat. And I can tell you, when I used to be at Deloitte and a lot of us women would sit around chatting, we all played sports at some level.
You're in interesting days in the WNBA. We've obviously got this movement, women's sports, record attendance and ratings and merchandise. And for the women coming in, by virtue of them being able to monetize their name, image, and likeness, they got some bank when they get to the league. When you think about your journey with money, and maybe your situation's a little bit different because you were an accounting major, but how important is it, and why is it important for girls to start understanding at an earlier age than ever about saving investing and really having this level of financial literacy that, quite frankly, wasn't altogether necessary that long ago.
Yeah, really important. I think one of the differences since I've been in this role is they had platforms, they had social media followings, but not where it is today. They're almost coming in today as businesswomen. Whereas what the W was doing before is they would play average 4 or 5 years, obviously some played much longer, and then they go try to be in business. And many of them were entrepreneurs and and wanted to start their own business. Some of them wanted broadcasting coaching. But now I think what's cool, at least the top 10 to 20 players coming out of college every year, they understand business better because they're part of the negotiation of these deals. And what they're also learning is how to build a team around them. They need a financial advisor. They understand that. They need mental health resources. They need, people understand benefits other than obviously parents ask a lot of questions about benefits when they come into the league. But it's really fascinating to see the evolution. So I think that was the positive part of the NIL was the players are really understanding economics and numbers a little more and how revenue drives other things you can do. And why brands endorse them.
Yeah.
Brands endorse them because 80% of every household consumer purchasing decision in the U.S. is made or influenced by a woman. Yeah. So why wouldn't you want to endorse a woman athlete?
There's a movement toward greater diversity in boardrooms. You sit on McDonald's?
McDonald's and Royalty Pharma, 2 public company boards.
Why is that important?
Well, for me, it was important because a long career in business and sitting in boardrooms as the auditor, it was important to me because now I'm running a consumer brand called the WNBA, and Deloitte was a B2B company, a business-to-business company. So now I'm a business-to-consumer, and there's no bigger consumer brand than McDonald's globally. I mean, it's huge scale. See what they've done with digital. So I learn a lot. So I don't take every board opportunity that comes my way. I'm very purposeful. So McDonald's was about the brand and the consumer brand. And Royalty Pharma I was life sciences, and I missed the science when I came into WNBA. It's basketball. I missed the science, and my clients were solving unmet medical needs and working on immuno-oncology and Alzheimer's, and now I have a little bit of that back being on that board. So there's a reason why I chose those boards.
I don't know that you realize this, but you're the only commissioner that played a college sport. NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, NWSL. Cathy Engelbert's the only one who played college sports.
I did not realize that.
There you go.
All right. 2 college sports.
How differently might you run the WNBA if you didn't have the basketball experience?
I've thought about that a lot. If I had the business experience, I think the business side and the marketing and the raising capital.
Going out and raising capital.
$75 million and deploying that was something very different for women's sports that women's sports had never seen. So I think I still would have done that. But the difference is, had I not played, I do think I get a little cred with the players because I played for Muffet, but also it's a passion of mine. Yeah. I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't have a huge passion for the game.
Do you still get out on the court? Will you shoot?
Every arena I go in, if there's a rack of basketballs, even if I'm in heels, I'll pick one up and shoot.
With other people around, or
Sometimes when players are like, what? The younger players who might not know I played, I'm like, yeah, what? I played this game one time. I still play. One thing good about COVID, there wasn't a lot good, but every night that it was nice out, my son and I would go play horse in our front yard where there was a basketball court on the end of our street, and he's still trying to beat me.
If you could choose your all-time dream starting lineup, I was going to say I'd assume that you were the point guard, but you don't have to be the point guard.
No, I'm the point guard.
Dead or alive. Who do you want on that court with you?
My 6'6" father at center, Kobe Bryant, who I met shortly before that tragedy for the first and only time. I'd probably pick Derek Jeter because I know he was a pretty accomplished basketball player. And probably Muffet McGraw because she was good. She used to play with us and scrimmage with us. She was good.
If you could pay it forward and tag somebody in your network who is made by sports, who do you want to tag?
Well, someone who has been a big advocate of sports and women's sports included is Secretary Condoleezza Rice. one of our investors. And she's also very talented musically, so I admire the fact that it wasn't just athletics.
There's really nothing she can't do.
There's nothing she can't do, clearly. I'd love to tag Tory Burch because I know she played athletics when she was younger.
She's a tennis player.
She was a tennis player, and I mean, her kind of fashion style, and as she was thinking about, at least as she told me, thinking about, building a business, it was because she really wanted a foundation. And someone told her, well, you can't have a foundation unless you have money, and to get money, you got to build a business. I think Muffet would be another one I would tag because she has stood for kind of this women's empowerment in sports, and she kind of brought that to the forefront that we need more women coaches and we need more women in business and more women CEOs. And we've made a lot of progress since I was the CEO. I think we're up to 15% women in the Fortune 500. It was 4 when I was the CEO just 10 years ago.
Cathy Engelbert, great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Great to be here.
I am now totally on a mission to book Condoleezza Rice, Tory Burch, and Muffet McGraw for the pod. I have interviewed Dr. Rice before. What a force of nature, and somebody who undoubtedly, as the commissioner says, has always taken her shot. Would love to hear your feedback about the podcast, this episode, the show overall. Any suggestions for upcoming guests? We are all ears. Hit us up on socials, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. You'll find all of our account information in the show notes. And if you would be so kind, please, please, please subscribe, download, like our episodes, share with friends. We really hope these stories are resonating with you and that maybe there's somebody special in your life who might like them too. Thank yous for this week. Commissioner Engelbert for carving out time in her crazy busy schedule. To our friends at WFTS, the ABC and Hearst affiliate down in Tampa, who graciously hosted us for this recording, and Brian Lawler and Tony Lamarato at Hearst, who helped tee us up. Shout outs to our podcast squad, Allison Johnson, Carlos Delgado, Jess Levy, and Kim Neal, and our wonderful production team on the TV side for the Champion's Edge on ABC, our companion show, Audrey Smith, Kelly Danshow, Annie Chanthavong, Lupita Davis, and Jordan Kessler. Love you ladies, and so glad to be on this journey with you. The Athlete Effect is a Walk Swiftly Productions podcast, copyright 2026, all rights reserved. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. Once an athlete, always an athlete. We'll see you next time.